She lowered herself onto the couch as quietly as if silence could soften the weight in her chest. The cushions sighing beneath her like they already knew this was not where she belonged anymore. The house in suburban Ohio was asleep, but her heart was loud, thudding with questions that had no safe answers. What if this were you, standing at the edge of a marriage that felt thinner every night, wondering whether dignity meant staying or leaving? If you were in this moment, would you choose the couch? Or would you fight the ache that told you the bed was no longer yours? Sarah had not planned to sleep there when the evening began. She had folded laundry, packed tomorrow's lunches, and kissed her daughter Abigail's forehead with the same tenderness she always did, pretending routine could keep the cracks from spreading. But when the lights dimmed and the bedroom felt like a room filled with unsaid words, her feet carried her elsewhere. The couch was narrow and cold, a place for guests and arguments, not for wives who once believed love was unbreakable. Her wedding ring felt heavier than usual, pressing into her skin like a reminder of promises she still honored, even when she felt unseen. Across the room, the hallway light flicked on, and Michael stood there, tired lines carving his face in ways Sarah did not remember from the early years. He had come home late again, smelling of road dust and coffee, the life of a man carrying burdens he never learned how to set down. He saw her there, small and folded in on herself, and something in him shifted, the way it does when you realize the damage was never sudden, only ignored. In that quiet moment, the bed they shared for 10 years seemed to call out, not as furniture, but as a witness to everything they had lost and everything they might still save. Their story had not always been this fragile. They met in a Michigan church basement, volunteering for a food drive, two strangers bound by faith and laughter. Life in America promised them space to dream, and they filled it quickly with a modest home, a child and plans that felt endless. But hardship has a way of sneaking in through ordinary doors. Michael's job layoffs, Sarah's nights juggling work and motherhood, the slow erosion of conversations that once lasted for hours. Pain did not arrive loudly. It came in missed dinners, in apologies postponed, in the belief that tomorrow would be easier. The couch became a symbol of all that distance. Sarah told herself it was temporary, that she needed space to breathe, to cry without being seen. Yet part of her wondered if choosing the couch meant choosing loneliness, training her heart to accept less than it deserved. She thought of Abigail asleep down the hall, clutching her worn, stuffed rabbit, believing her parents were unshakable. What if this happened to you? She asked herself, knowing a child's sense of safety often rests on choices made in the dark by adults who are just as afraid. Michael stood there longer than he meant to, memories pressing in. He remembered Sarah laughing barefoot in the kitchen, remembered prayers whispered together when money was tight but hope was wide. He realized how often he had mistaken silence for strength, how often he had assumed she would always be there, waiting, forgiving. The bed upstairs was big enough, yes, but the distance between them had made it feel impossibly small. Still, something gentler rose in him, a humility that had been missing for years, a recognition that love sometimes begins again not with grand gestures but with simple mercy. That night did not fix everything. The couch remained where it was, and the scars between them did not vanish. But Sarah felt something loosen when she allowed herself to believe she was still wanted, still seen. She carried that feeling with her the next day, into work, into prayer, into the small, brave decision to speak honestly instead of retreating. Change, she learned, is rarely dramatic. It is made of quiet steps taken toward warmth instead of comfortless pride. Over the weeks that followed, they began to rebuild in fragile ways. They talked when it was uncomfortable. They listened when it hurt. Michael learned to come home earlier, not because work demanded less, but because love demanded more. Sarah learned that vulnerability was not weakness, that asking for closeness did not make her needy, only human. America's seasons turned outside their windows, and with them, something inside the house shifted too, slow as spring thaw. Abigail noticed first. Children always do. She laughed more at breakfast, slept easier at night, sensing without understanding that the ground beneath her was steady again. Sarah watched her daughter and felt both gratitude and regret, knowing how close they had come to teaching her that love was something that drifted away. Instead, she hoped Abigail would remember this time not as a breaking point, but as a quiet lesson in second chances. Years later, Sarah would still remember that night on the couch, not with bitterness, but with clarity. It was the night she realized that marriage is not about never feeling alone, but about choosing, again and again, to reach for one another even when pride suggests retreat. The bed upstairs became more than a place to sleep. It became a shared space of forgiveness, prayer, and the understanding that healing often begins with one small act of kindness. Before this story ends, take a moment and tell us in the comments what part of it spoke to your heart, or what choice you think you would have made in that moment. If this story truly touched you, gently consider liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing, so more hearts searching for hope and second chances can find stories like this one.